Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here with Dane Christensen.
Hello.
And Megan Strand.
Crickets.
Oh, Megan's not here today, and we did that little bit of silence so that when she listens to it, she'll feel bad. It's just us today, Dane. This is awful. There is a chance this show will be 3.5 hours long.
Right. No, that's the one. The show will not lack interesting content. It just will require some self-discipline.
That's right, because Megan is usually the gateway. When she's gone silent, she's sick of what we're talking about and that we need to move on. That's,
Right. We'll practice self-control.
We must show great restraint. But I don't know how we're going to do it with this first story, which has me in stitches. This is the Colbert play. Tell us about the Colbert play here.
Right. So yesterday's Colbert Report had this great little piece, and it's super funny and very worth watching on, colbertnation.com.
Yeah.
Anyway, a little 5-minute clip that he does on soap operas. I guess the soap opera industry in general, if that's the right word. But yeah, a few big name shows have canceled over the years, and their viewership is down like 80%.
Some of your favorite shows, right? I mean, what is it? Guiding Light and
Guiding Light.
Was it Days of Our Lives?
Just when they were about to, what did he say? Resolve all the conflicts or something like that.
all those storylines they canceled.
We're all going to come together, and then they canceled. Really funny. But anyway, so he's got these examples of the most extreme, over-the-top product placement I've ever seen. One was Chex Mix, and the other was Cheerios, and you just feel like you're honestly watching an infomercial. It's that deliberate. So,
it is. Now, product placement is. I mean, it's pretty much everywhere anyway, right? I mean, we've seen. Right. I remember I took a clip out of an Alias product Alias episode. This was several years ago, obviously, since Alias hasn't been on the air in a long time. But I use it a lot because it's one of those that felt really deliberate then, where the two main characters, it's what's her name, Sydney Bristow, and her father Jack, are sitting in a Ford hybrid SUV, and this is how they played it. It was the best. I mean, I get the giggles just thinking about it because, okay, so they're sitting there and they're having this, brooding father-daughter, yes, and we're both spies conversation. And he says to her, I notice you're in the new Ford hybrid.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And she says, and her answer is, yes, it's silent. All the better to sneak up on people.
Wow.
I mean, it was like that. It was like it's the reason I bought a hybrid as a spy is because it's so quiet. And then they cut to a zooming sort of tracking close up of the Ford hybrid emblem on the back of the car as they pull up into this old warehouse to execute their operation. And I thought that is just brilliant. Now, cut to this Colbert clip where they show a Cheerios product placement that is so ripe with sexual tension, I had to take my shirt off. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It was brilliant.
I just laughed so hard. Oh my gosh. And I guess there are differing opinions, apparently, about how to go about product placement, advertising. Because my personal opinion is that it works best when you don't know it's product placement. Somebody's driving a certain kind of car and it's never mentioned, it's never made obvious. It's somebody is eating a certain kind of candy bar, but there's no close up of the wrapper. But it's riskier, I'm sure, to do that. And if there's a lot of money being spent, and what I don't have is access to data about the effectiveness of certain kinds of placement. Right?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, because there's, does it work? It may be a short-term way to get to keep the lights on, but I don't have any. I don't have any understanding. I mean, here we are talking about how ridiculous it looks, but are you going to go buy Cheerios?
Well, I guess when I say it works best, I'm actually not thinking so much from the marketer's perspective. Probably, I think think what's tough there is I'm thinking of not being distracted watching a movie. Like I'm thinking it's really annoying to know you're in the middle of a story and you've now shifted to being pitched a product. It doesn't. I don't like it. I mean, I think that it's. I think artistically, I guess, right? I mean, it's just it doesn't work. But yeah, I mean, if you're Cheerios, gosh, do you really? I mean, other than the fact that it might turn viewers off and it might, be sort of the beginning of the end of the show when viewers feel sort of duped.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like you say, if you were watching that particular episode, well, maybe.
Do you watch the 30 Rock?
I do watch the 30 Rock.
That is a show I think that does product placement exceptionally well.
I totally agree with you.
They did I think it was in the first or second season where they had a whole catalog of episodes with Snapple as their product,
right.
and it was just like you described, except more sort of Salvador Dali than anything else, where they'd be waiting for an elevator and the elevator would open and there'd be some random dude standing there in a full body Snapple outfit, like costume, plushy costume, and they wouldn't, either they wouldn't talk about it or they would make it absurdly obvious, which in the context of a comedy works really well. The clips that they show on this Colbert video, which we will put into the show notes, you really, I mean, it makes me feel bad for these actors more than anything else.
I know.
That's the distracting part.
You're right about that. Like, yeah, I'm just sort of watching their faces thinking, well, these guys are good actors because
I want to get into healthcare. And so I feel like I should eat better. And it's,
I'm just waiting for them to just, I mean, it had to be multiple takes and I don't know. I mean, it's just got to be kind of,
what can we learn from this, though? I mean, is there anything we can learn from what they're doing? Are there any lessons besides don't make it look so stupid?
Again, I hate to jump to too many conclusions without data to say, something sold a product or actually, worked. But I also would love to know, for instance, in the 30 Rock example, was that Snapple saying, hey, we want whatever, we want to do product placement in a big way, but we'll let your writers handle it so that it'll fit into the tone of the show, and you know what I mean? Like everybody will be in on it, and it'll be, you guys know how to do the characters, you guys know the storyline, you make it work, because that's what I'm assuming happened, because it did fit. It didn't feel like, an agency or a company said, hey, we really want our hands all over this, which that's what it felt like with the soap opera thing, was like, Cheerios executives had basically forced this one in, and the writers of the show, although maybe the writers of the show aren't super clever on the soap operas, and but anyway, yeah, I think here's the lesson I would say, and I don't know that it's I don't know if it's a lesson. Here's what I would say about it, though, that I think the product really, it works best when the product sort of fits the show, that everything sort of lines up, that there's some match, and without feeling too forced, and that it's not going away. I think that's the biggest point that you sort of introduced it with, is it's not ever going away. It's going to become more and more, and partly because of DVRs, maybe primarily because of DVRs, but there's just no question we're going to continue to see it. And I think, that at times we'll like it and at times we won't. And I think the formula is, in my opinion, again, is primarily just, does it fit? Does it disrupt the flow, or, does it sort of enhance, or at least not take away from?
I just found a research paper by Seyoon Choi.
Did you?
On the yes, I did.
Because that's my pen name.
Is it? It is the effectiveness of product placement, the role of plot connection, product involvement, and prior brand evaluation. And there it is, ripe with charts and graphs.
Well, there we go.
But it's really, really long, and so I don't have the answers to it right now. But I'll post the link to it on the
I guess you got to ask the question to get an answer.
Yeah, you really do. Mean standard deviations. I mean, it's this.
Wow.
It's got.
But you know what? And we'll move on here. But I would say, that whatever the rules were 2 years ago, they've probably changed today and will be a little different 2 years from now, because people will have different expectations. The audience will, things that work today just may not. I mean, the rules are just, I think, evolving, and they will continue to evolve.
Well, and I think we have less patience or tolerance. The elasticity of our patience is growing taut, and I think when people are confronted by this, eventually it just gets annoying, and that eventually is becoming compressed. Like it's not going to take long for me just not to want to watch my shows anymore if they're going to annoy me with these kinds of Cheerios ads.
Right. I mean, I may stop DVRing the soap operas.
Yeah, I mean, you should. That's a way to
take at night during Daddy's cry time.
During Daddy's cry time. So let's talk about Tron. Can we talk about Tron? I think it was our first episode when I talked about how excited I was that this movie is coming out, and it is now imminent. It's next month. I think, what is it, December 10th?
And I thought you were such a nerd when you said you were so excited, because I was not aware of how completely amazing the show looks like it's going to be, actually.
So, are you taking it back now? I'm
taking it back. That's what I'm saying.
That's awesome. I'm gonna just let you buy my ticket to make it up to me. What is this? What is this Rezzed mashup?
So, Pete, you've got maybe you can just fill in the gaps as I'll try and be brief, but anyway, you'll be there to support me, right?
Yeah.
You'll be my safety net.
Right.
So an unemployed guy, out of work, whatever, but very talented, sort of amateur editor, I guess.
Occupationally challenged.
Occupationally challenged in Colorado. Spent a whole lot of time putting together he took clips that were available of this upcoming release, clips that he could sort of find online from trailers and whatever sort of been leaked out there, and he did his own trailer for it. And instead of, because I think they use Daft Punk as kind of the group that does the soundtrack and the music for the movie, but he used Glitch Mob from Los Angeles, which he's a big fan of, and used one of their songs to actually sort of create a new trailer on his own time, just as a fan of Tron and as a fan of Glitch Mob. So it's neat, sure, but here's what's interesting, and this is, I think, Pete, where you and I, really just sort of dig into this story, is the producer. I would never have known about this little mashup, I'm sure, had the producer not in a teleconference, I think a week or 2 weeks ago, shared this with, I don't remember if it was shareholders or what, but the conversation was, how are we going to use social media to spread the word and promote the film? And his comment was, wow, we were doing a search the other day and we came across this, this fan created trailer, and we think it's the greatest thing, and it's a representation of how motivated and how devoted our fans are, and basically just the green light. I mean, they used copyright material, but there was no slap on the wrist of any kind. There was like, hey, isn't this great? And it is great. And I think the problem with that kind of thing is that guy could very well have gotten a phone call from the lawyers, is it Universal or Disney? I guess it's Disney, right? Anyway, could very well have gotten a lawyer saying, shut it down, and you're using copyrighted images, and we have total control of that, because that's the kind of thing that usually happens.
Right.
So inconsistency.
Well, that's really what gets me riled up about it, because this is and to give credit where credit's due, the guy's name's Josh Prescott, and he I think he's got some great ideas. He talked to Wired about how he's done this before, more as a tribute than anything else, and I think that the word tribute's really important here, because in this case, we have, the producers saying, we understand it's a tribute. We like that they did that, and we're going to support it.
Right.
But the fact that they can do it when, the vast majority of the entertainment industry sees it as, copyright infringement, it shows how silly the current state of the law is. and that it's that inconsistent application, and it just boy, if we're going to talk about a lesson, this is really the anomalous entry into the canon, because it just you don't get the opportunity to do this and be singled out and hailed as creative and inspiring for your work that often when you do these sorts of mashups. It is really cool, and the music is awesome, and it's easy to kind of get lost in. It just makes you look forward to the movie that much more, I think.
Right. It does. Right. It does nothing but help the movie Tron, and for that matter, the band Glitch Mob. It does nothing but help those guys. But it was done without permission, and it was done using material that's otherwise protected as by copyright owners. But there's no question that if you're able to take that position and say, hey, this is a great thing, and and sort of spread the news about it and get people watching it.
Yeah.
Who loses there other than there are lawyers sitting on their shoulders saying, hey, jump all over that, pull it back. We've got to own it. We've got to control it. We've got to control the message. We've got to be we can't let people just do this kind of thing. Or is it okay when it's positive, but it's not okay when it's negative?
What's negative? Who gets to decide what's negative? I don't know. Well, here's one that's really positive, though, for me. It's this Tron game. Have you seen this Tron game? Have you played the iPhone Tron game?
I have not.
This is a Coke-branded, Coca-Cola, Coke Zero branded Tron movie tie-in game, and it is, I think, one of the most clever uses of the technology that in terms of a co-branded entertainment experience that I have seen. The function of the game is really, is very cool. It uses your phone's, this is an iPhone only game as far as I understand. It uses the iPhone's GPS to place you as a dot on the Tron light cycle grid. Right? And so you see this virtual grid with a little dot in the middle that's you. And as you move, your little dot moves around this game grid with the light cycle trail from the movie, behind you. And all of the Tron aficionados know what happens when you run into somebody else's light cycle trail, you blow up.
This was the premise of the video game.
This
back
was the
in
premise,
80s.
exactly. I spent way too much of my Saturday morning video game money on Tron. So you're on this game grid, and you can hook it up with other people who also have their little light cycle walls that trail behind them. And as you move around the city, you are dragging this line behind you, and you can run into each other's walls. And so it's essentially turning your immediate vicinity into this Tron game grid where you run into each other. You should go to the video. We'll place it on the show notes and watch it.
And this was done by Coca-Cola.
Well, it's a Coke-branded game. It's just an extremely clever... It's one of those... This is why I think it's so useful. You get a lot of these apps in the app economy that are co-branded apps that are really stupid, and you can tell they're just thrown together just to put the name of the movie or the name of the brand out there, and which is fine, but they don't add a lot of utility or entertainment to your life. This is one of those games that if you have a couple of people who like running around, it's like hide and seek for the Tron kind of grown up generation.
Well,
it's really cool.
Here's what I'd say to kind of tie this into that whole product placement conversation is, I think as you and I were talking about product placement, I think, I don't know, I mean, my general feeling is that if you let the writers of the show, rather than the advertisers, handle the content or handle how it's done, it can be done very well. And in this case, I would say maybe the parallel is if you're a product and, you want to do co-branding, that's sort of the initial idea, let real game developers develop it.
People who understand the technology they're working with.
Which is just, again, this is just an assumption that it wasn't an ad executive that came up with the game, that it was probably somebody who's really understands and has a creative mind about games. And, there you go. And now it's good.
Well, it ended up being a really neat way to use it. And it's it goes to our next story too. It's this sort of the kind of pairing of offline and online. In the case of the Tron game, it gets people up and moving because the game doesn't work if you just sit still. you have to actually run around and by the way, you can't use it in a car. The game actually fails you the faster you go. So they encourage you not to get on a motorcycle and actually drive around the city like a bat out of hell. But the next story is about Google
funny.
Goggles. Now, do you use Google Goggles? Do you know what this
No.
is?
I've never used it.
Google Goggles is fantastic. On the Android, it's just called Goggles. On iPhone, it is inside the Google app that you can download for free in the App Store. Essentially, what you're doing with Google Goggles is you take pictures of things or people, and it submits that picture to the Google service and then gives you information on whatever the subject of that picture is. So you can take a picture of a famous piece of artwork or a photograph or a statue or, in many cases, of a person. And it'll bring up information on that person. It is like magic. It's one of those things that makes you feel like you're living in the future when you actually use Google Goggles. And
now, real quick, is this the one that plugs into like Google Earth or Google Maps, where you might actually look at whatever, like it's a pier, Santa Monica Pier, and Google will have sort of put everybody's photos that they've submitted of that and try to sort of piece them together to create an image?
No, that's Photosynth. That's a
Sorry.
Microsoft thing, and you really, you can't.
I'm way off.
That's like not kosher anymore. You've just mentioned Microsoft and Google in the same thing, and that's hurts us.
Not kosher anymore.
Not kosher. Not technologically kosher. No, it's not. It is. Although that is really cool, and if they were doing something
that is Microsoft,
with
you're
it,
right.
it would be great. No, this really is just you take a picture with your phone, and it gives you information on that. But until you really use it and see it work, you don't quite get how cool it is.
Sort of like the Yelp monocle.
Yeah, it is exactly.
It's kind of like, oh, that's probably weird, and then when you show it to somebody, you're like, what?
Oh man, that is just
this
so
is
useful.
Space age.
Well, so what? This is now the marketing connection. So now we have Google Goggles working with Buick, Disney, Diego, T-Mobile, and Delta to take their offline or their print ads and Google Gogglify them. They're
Nice.
calling them goggles enabled, and so there's a little marker on these print ads, and if you take your phone and you take a picture of the open magazine in front of you, it will take you to a landing page on your phone that gives you more information or video or other extended media about whatever you're looking at. What do we think of this?
Here's what I think of it, and I'm going to go back to product placement again to come up with a parallel. But as you were talking about product placement, and your patience is growing thin, and that maybe is going to be driving the way that evolves. I think of this, what you're talking about, and I think it's part of what motivates. I think your patience wearing thin, in the other example, is an example like this, where it's becoming so much truer, I guess. And these are all sort of, in my opinion anyway, predictions being fulfilled that, wow, the consumer wants to be in control. We don't want to see advertising that doesn't relate to our interests or match our interests. We don't mind advertising if it's what we want to see when we want to see it. And so who can predict, how that's going to come about in over the next year or 2 years. But here's an example right here of, well, it's not that you know that when you're getting Vanity Fair, it's full of ads, and you may or may not like to see all of them, but some of them you really like. And it's, this just sort of a way to sort of take out all the hurdles between you seeing the ad and you getting more information that's, relevant at the time that you want it.
Yeah.
Which of course you can do going online or,
But see, that's a really interesting thing. I mean, what I would hope to see as an extension of this, I think it's at its very base, I really like the idea. It's an extension of the very much failed QCat from years ago. This little USB scanner shaped like a a cat that you would scan these, funny kind of barcodes in advertisements, and supposedly they would bring up new information on the web. In that case, you'd have to be sitting next to your computer with your magazine, with this hardware device in your hand. And this, with Google Goggles, you're using your phone, which is already for many of us an extension of our hands anyway.
Right.
And so
scary but true.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. What I would like to see in your Vanity Fair example is I would love to see Condé Nast, as the publisher of Vanity Fair, include Google Goggle-enabled their content. Wouldn't it be great to be reading an article and be able to take a picture of this article and get a video backgrounder on brought up directly on their website on my phone?
Why wouldn't they want to do that? Because, obviously the publishing industry, which is struggling probably the most as this, I don't know, as our habits evolve, but it's sort of one thing to say, hey, what a cool concept for a couple of companies with a few print ads. But if I'm not already thinking, if I'm not making the connection, that as I'm reading a magazine, I ought to have my iPhone handy to get additional content. Right. I think you're exactly right. I think if they don't go in that direction, then this may take quite some time to really catch on and be useful.
Well, and I blacked out for just a few seconds there, so you may have said this.
That happens to me a lot.
It totally did. I'm so embarrassed. But what I was just thinking was, and this is why, because my thought was clearly so important to me, as an advertiser, I would love to see the publisher taking this kind of a role. If I'm going to invest as an advertiser in Goggle enabling my ads, I want the publisher. Try to say Google
Goggle again, because you're really struggling with it.
I'm struggling in a big way. I want the publisher to be conditioning readers that this is how content works now. You can get more content through the article and through the ad, and how cool is that to see that sort of synthesis?
Exactly.
Anyway, I think it's a really, really cool thing, and would love to see how clever advertisers can pull it together.
And next time I'm talking and you black out, go ahead and say that you blacked out, because it means that would normally be Megan saying, guys, you're rambling.
Yeah. I'm just going to start beeping. Beep. So we are running really short on time, but we have a couple of just last stories on the list here we can buzz through very quickly. Yes?
Yes.
Chevy, got to check out the new Chevy Runs Deep campaign. This is just a hysterically funny PR offensive from Jeff Goodby in the Huffington Post. We encourage you to read, only because it is a great story about how quickly social media goes awry, even when you have the best intentions. In this case, Goodby's agency was selected as the ad agency for Chevy's new campaign. The new Chevy Runs Deep campaign was greeted poorly. And this is from the article on Huffington Post. In the week before our first work was released, the Detroit Free Press leaked the new news that our theme line would be Chevy Runs Deep, which was immediately greeted as the, quote, worst theme line ever by car blogger jalopnik.org, whose opinion was Facebooked and retweeted across cyberspace before a single piece of advertising had ever run. The upside of the story is, now that the advertising has run over the last week, it's actually gotten good reviews. And, it's definitely a rebranding of the Chevy brand, and I think, the upside is it needed it. And the downside is I think people really want to see more about the cars and less about the brand. I think people are tired of the apology ads from the car makers, but we'll see how that plays out.
Interesting. And this one just sort of follows up on that whole Gap logo from a month or 2 months ago that somehow something leaks, or, well, I guess Gap's was more deliberate, and who knows exactly how deliberate, but are you really getting good focus group feedback, more or less, when this stuff sort of leaks and spreads like wildfire, and people have all these huge, strong emotional opinions about your marketing?
Right.
And should you do anything about that, or will it be sort of used, or I'd say that's just, I think the key is what you said. It's just an example of how things can move so fast, usually unintentionally, but because, if you've got the magic formula to intentionally making information spread really fast, then you're probably really rich.
Well, and speaking of really rich things moving really fast, Twitter has changed the face of sports.
Right. We don't talk about sports enough on this show, I was thinking. And so we don't have a sports segment. Buffalo Bills player Steve Johnson dropped a ball. Was this Monday nights? Anyway.
Sad clown.
Yeah, dropped a catch. Poor guy. But apparently it was not his fault that it dropped. It was God's. And so after the game, he went on Twitter and said, "I praise you 24/7!" Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. The 24-year-old tweeted, "And this is how you do me? You expect me to learn from this? How? I'll never forget this, ever. Thanks, though." Direct tweet to God right there. Because, it makes perfect sense. If God helps you win the game and you praise him after you won the game and thank him, then when you lose, isn't that his fault too? Right?
All right.
It makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense. Now, this Steven Johnson, I think he needs a little bit of a lesson on how to actually talk to God on Twitter. He did not use @God, so God actually never heard him, which may have been his problem all along. Now, you'll notice if you go to twitter.com,
the communication thing.
Twitter.com/God, God actually has 60,210 followers, and his profile says, "Hells yeah, it's me. You can email me at god@omnipotent.com." And one of his latest tweets, his Thanksgiving message to his 60,000 followers was, "Happy Thanksgiving, followers. Today I'm thankful for being the supreme leader and for not giving raccoons opposable thumbs." Now, I think of note, and this may be why Steven Johnson had so much trouble, God is actually only following 1,930 people. And so maybe maybe in fact he's just busy.
That is pretty selective, right?
Yeah, pretty selective. The chosen
the chosen people. Right. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, information spreads fast.
It spreads fast, especially when you're talking to God.
And when you're in a very emotional, if your career is very emotional like that one, it's sort of like, when you're drunk, you shouldn't have access to Twitter.
No, you should have to do math before you're allowed to tweet.
Right.
It should be the math goggles.
There should be a filter.
Let's see, a couple of quick news updates. Groupon, we've talked about Groupon in the past, is about to, possibly seconds away as we record this, from being purchased by Google. Originally, they said the rumors were floating that it was a purchase up to $6 billion, according to, according to Mashable, or TechCrunch this morning. I think we're down to $2.5 billion, but we should know in the next day or so if Google's going to buy Groupon.
And at $2.5 billion, still the largest purchase they would have ever made, or largest single business move.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Google's doing some really interesting things. Groupon Boutiques is a new fashion landing area that you cannot tell is run by Google. It really looks like it's run by a fashion outfit until you click on the help pages and you get those crappy Google help pages. So that Boutiques
and
is
I'll say quickly about this that there are a lot of things about Groupon that I didn't know until this deal became apparent the last couple of days, like how much it's worth, how fast it's grown, how many transactions occur a day, what a huge contributor, to that sort of section of the marketing economy, I guess. Wow.
Wow. Pushed by the pressure of a really struggling economy. Boy, were they in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other big news that we have is the freeway blocking Imperial Stars, which we reported on. Reported as if we reported it,
right?
Which we armchair quarterback. A week later. It looks like they have actually. They're the guys who parked their moving truck in the middle of Highway 101 in Los Angeles to play their
to promote their song,
to promote
their video,
music. They have actually been charged with felonies. The defendants say
and not for what they should have been charged for, which is making really horrible music.
Right,
that's a felony.
Right.
I mean, they're talentless.
Well, they said that
this one angered a lot of people.
They pulled their stunt to bring attention to the plight of homeless children. Well, anyway, they have been charged, and so we'll see how they play. Now that plays out. Facebook is sued for actually, get this, having privacy controls in place. So just when you thought Facebook was a bastion, the last bastion of sanity online. It turns out that there is someone who is crazier. Walker Digital. They actually say that they have the method and system for establishing and maintaining user-controlled anonymous communications surrounds this suit. They think there should be no privacy controls, I guess. It's a very strange place. We'll post that in the show notes. And as our tool of the week in the last 1 minute that we have to talk, it is, I think, a landmark.
It is. App. I've been waiting.
Have you?
No.
This is the MySpace iPhone app.
Wow.
I know.
They moved fast. I mean, wow. Wow. 3 years. So get your hands on that.
Man, get your hands on that fast. We're creating, quote, the best experience for MySpace mobile web users by taking the most compelling entertainment elements of MySpace.com and making them portable, while simultaneously building a portfolio of independent mobile applications tailored specifically to entertainment categories. Is it?
This is a News Corp company, right?
Yeah, right. The new MySpace mobile website is accessible today on iPhone, iPod Touch, Android, Palm, and select Nokia and BlackBerry devices. It's a novel idea. Celeb news. Novel idea. Get it quick because MySpace itself is well, let's just say they've now ceded to Facebook their login tool. So we'll see if they can rebrand themselves. It'll be interesting to see if what happens to MySpace.
It will.
Anything else we have to say this week, Dane?
No.
I can't believe we actually got through everything that was on the list. We moved. Where can people find you?
This is what I've been waiting for. I'm so excited to let people know that soon you'll be able to go to mailperms.com. I just acquired the URL last night, so there's no website there yet. But I'm pretty excited. I wanted to just celebrate the male perm culture, and in some ways just kind of lament the fact that men just don't get perms like they used to. So it's pretty exciting. I couldn't believe it was available. I mean, $10 for a year. This is the first I've
heard of this. This is the first I've heard of it. I'm a little bit stunned.
Maleperms.com. Now, mensperms.com was already taken. So anyway, male perms.
I think you have a broader audience now. Male perms might just not even be men now. I mean, it could be, cats. You could get a little perm for your cat, or your long-haired like a chow. A chow would be a good candidate for a pet for a perm.
Yeah, this could be a good meme.
So so male perms. Have you gotten at male perms on Twitter yet? Or
no? Gosh, I'm not moving as fast as MySpace is moving.
And Facebook.com/male perms. You're going to need to.
There it goes. If I don't get those by
in
the
next
time
5 minutes, because I may post this quick jow just to test you.
And they'll be gone. Somebody will have them. Ha ha ha.
And you can find me at. You know what? I've been moving things around. I usually am at fifthandmain.com, but not so. Now that points to my about.me page. I don't know what's going to go up at Fifth and Main. I'm working on it, but I'm also blogging over at petewright.co. And you can learn more about this show at thenakedmarketers.com. Make sure to visit there. Subscribe to the show in iTunes. It's the very best way to make sure you don't miss a single episode of Naked Marketing Hilarity. And I think that's all we have to talk about.
And good reminder there, by the way, I'm loving About Me. And so, you can find me at about.me/Dane Christensen.
That's such a useful thing. I made such fun of About Me when I first heard about it, but it is such a useful place. I've gotten so many comments from folks.
I think it's great. It's a great little splash page for yourself.
Splash page. So, anyway, that's what we have to say. Thank you so much, Dane and Megan. We miss you. This has been another week of The Naked Marketers.